In the late 1990s, Sir Alex Ferguson fumed when Manchester United missed out on major transfer targets and the Scot almost retired. So in the 1999 Champions League final, what did he tell his Man United players at half-time to guide them to a miraculous comeback? The answer lies both in this video and Matt Dickinson's riveting book 1999 Manchester United, the Treble and all that. It's a book brimming with stories about Keane, Beckham and the Premier League's most accidental, legendary strike partnership. As you'll know by now, Man United became the first English team to complete the Continental Treble, winning the Premier League, FA Cup and the Champions League. In this video, I'll give you my main thoughts on the book and discuss the main themes in it too. Now, back to Fergie's team talk. So by the time United went in 1-0 down at half-time in the Champions League final against Bayern Munich, Ferguson actually narrowly avoided being sacked the previous season when Manchester United failed to win a trophy. He'd been at loggerheads with Man United chairman Martin Edwards for some time now. Gary Neville commented that anger was like petrol for Ferguson. Dickinson evokes real nostalgia, and it's incredible to think of how Fergie really fumed at Martin Edwards for missing out on transfer targets such as Gabriel Batistuta, Patrick Kluivert and the Brazilian Ronaldo. Let's not forget, at the time this was the richest club in the world with a turnover of more than Arsenal and Chelsea combined. What's even more nostalgic is United being top half of the table. Once United arrived at the Champions League final, they were missing Paul Scholes and Roy Keane through suspension. So as United sat in the dressing room at half-time, losing on the biggest night of their lives, Ferguson pondered what on earth he could say to them. Earlier in the book, Dickinson recounts how Ferguson remembered the former Barcelona striker Steve Archibald telling him once that when he lost the Champions League final, losing wasn't the most painful thing. Walking past the trophy at the end was. Archibald's comments upset Ferguson and just left a knot in his stomach. And it's interesting because we remember Ferguson as just this guy who was permanently red-faced with rage, but in fact he could actually be quite compassionate at times. Despite his reluctance, Ferguson told his players the story of Archibald. Ferguson asked his players to put themselves in Archibald's shoes and said, "You will hate that thought for the rest of your lives." He looked at each of them in the eye and said, "Don't you dare come back here without giving everything." And Dickinson almost paints Ferguson as like a terrifying school teacher, and it's not hard to see why. We now know, of course, that team talk led Man United to score twice in injury time to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. As Dickinson puts it, it was 102 seconds that turned the world upside down. Key to the treble was David Beckham. Despite his being cast as the pantomime villain, he was blamed for England's second round exit at the 1998 World Cup. That match was also pretty much my first memory of watching football. Beckham became public enemy number one when he was sent off against Argentina for kicking Diego Simeone. Indeed, the treble season started with an effigy of Beckham hanging outside the Pleasant Pheasant pub in South Norwood. Lee Tickner, who supposedly initiated the stunt, said Beckham needed teaching a lesson. He later told Dickinson, "It was just a laugh, I don't even really like football." Dickinson also expands on how the hatred for Beckham was perhaps due to his image. He was very fashionable at the time, and around this era, it was very much a done thing for people like Vieira, Shearer and Roy Keane to be really, put on that pedestal as men's men, hard men. They were the real icons of that particular era. And what a redemptive arc for Beckham. This was a man who swapped shirts and shook hands with Simeone after United played Inter in the Champions League quarter-finals. In fact, he actually kept Simeone's shirt and framed it as a memory of his 2 assists from the game. There's quite an intimate scene in which Dickinson and Beckham sit in what the winger calls his man cave. Beckham looks at his photos on the wall, including one of West Ham fans abusing him, and he keeps them as reminders of his own fortitude and resilience. This side of Beckham where we've never really seen it before, and is perhaps the most introspective he's ever been. He claims he became colder and stubborn after France '98. Perhaps that's why he had such a great career and won titles in multiple countries, which is really rare for an Englishman. From one handsome Manchester United star to another who was, to put it mildly, quite popular with the ladies. After winning the Champions League, Dwight Yorke slept with the same girl 3 times in one night, fell off the bed, and then walked her through the hotel lobby in front of all of his teammates. Dwight Yorke was ever the shy and retiring type then. Despite his playboy lifestyle, Dwight Yorke thrived in the treble winning season, forming a once-in-a-generation level strike partnership with Andy Cole. The two linked up telepathically for goals such as in the Champions League against Barcelona. In fact, during the 1998-99 season, they actually got a combined 53 goals and 31 assists between them. Cole described playing with Yorke as like poetry. In fact, the two were never really meant to play together. Andy Cole almost left Manchester United when it looked like the Red Devils were about to sign Patrick Kluivert. Furthermore, he also experimented playing the likes of Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs up front when nobody really knew how Cole and Yorke might work together. This theory still holds more weight to this day when you consider that Man United had 4 world-class strikers at the club, the likes of Cole, Yorke, Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And when discussing Fergie's finest hour, it's impossible to leave out Roy Keane, who scored in the semi-final of the Champions League against Juventus and was in fact suspended for the final. Dickinson goes deeper into Keane's combative mentality. He would pelt footballs at new signings in training, and he also had running feuds with the likes of Peter Schmeichel, Jesper Blomqvist and Sheringham. He also raged at the assistant manager Steve McClaren when he felt that McClaren was giving the team too much praise and credit. After all, Keane didn't have too much time for so-called babies. To sum up, this is a compelling read that I would recommend to anyone who was around in the 90s. There's a theme of nostalgia which runs through the book, and there's also loads of references to the likes of Oasis, Tony Blair, Rupert Murdoch, and for me these were the kind of people that really defined England in the 1990s. One other theme that runs throughout the book is actually Ferguson's level-headedness. Yap Stam and Gary Neville said that playing for Ferguson was never fun, but still, Ferguson said, "I wasn't going to let winning the Champions League obsess me. I was never going to let myself get twisted up inside over it because I've still got a life to live." What a mentality and what a man. Thanks so much for watching as ever, and see you soon.